I find nice things in Islam, I find nice things in Hinduism, I find nice things in Buddhism. There's nice things about every religion, I find.
Yes.
And Christianity too.
Nice things cannot be the best thing.
Did this foreigner fall into an unlawful attempt to convert him? Is Christianity chipping away at Nagaland's culture and wreaking havoc? Welcome to SAFT Exposé, where we lay bare claims, arguments and objections against Christianity for what they really are. Call center scamster's nightmare and YouTube sensation Karl Rock released a recording 4 years back capturing his interaction with a Naga driver and an American missionary during his trip in Nagaland. I am of the opinion that the way the video is presented isn't neutral towards Christians professing or propagating their beliefs. And as it turns out, there are some crucial pieces of information that we need to know, given that the interaction touched upon the impact of Christianity in Nagaland. I'll do a more in-depth video in another expose, but we'll look at some essentials. So, let's dive in.
Oh, you're a foreigner?
Yes, from the United States, my friend, our friend.
Acha, thank you guys so much for picking us up. We really appreciate it. And what are you doing here, sir?
I'm visiting these men here and
Great.
doing some preaching of the gospel.
Thank you so much for your hospitality. You're a good Samaritan then.
Karl Rock and his two fellow travelers are given a ride in a jeep driven by a Naga driver with an American missionary in the passenger seat. After a bit of banter and narration by Karl Rock about what happened to Mike Cho, who went to the North Sentinel Island, we are shown a title that reads, An Introduction to Converting Indians. In this next clip lies the first key point I want to draw your attention to.
So, the in-poor villagers were trained how to praise the gospel of peace. Headhunting is sin, killing is sin. So God loves us. He died for our sin and rose again from the dead. So that was the gospel. So they happily took that gospel and went to next village. And within 30 years time, there were about 100 missionaries or evangelists. So from
American missionaries trained them.
Yeah, around 1930s to 1950. Within this time, these missionaries planted about 15,000 Baptist churches.
Oh, wow.
Yes. So that's why all Nagas become Christian.
Yeah.
The driver gave a very simple and historically accurate presentation of the central tenets of the Christian faith and what it accomplished in Nagaland. But when we hear the statistics coupled with the reference to the presence of American missionaries and the often touted cry of mass conversions in India, we may be given to think that it was the foreigners who swiftly achieved an avalanche of mass conversion. However, Dr. G. Kanata sets the record straight.
Statistically speaking, the number of converts under the American missionaries is negligible when we compare to the converts, that the native evangelists and the native preachers could actually convert the Nagas. I mean, like it's mind-boggling, Rather, it's remarkable, I should say. Thousands were getting baptized in a day. I mean, that's not a joke. Thousands, hundreds and thousands getting baptized in a day. So this sense of mass conversion that was happening. So in the post-independence period, especially in the 1950s, we see this whole mass conversion that was happening because of the mission work that is being done by the natives, by the Naga missionaries and the Naga preachers.
It was not foreign luring, but the transformative power of the truth that won over the hearts and minds of the Naga that propelled them to propagate the Christian message even further. Then comes an interesting title, Jesus versus Government of India. Take a look.
Missionaries, when they go to the remote places,
They learn
the local language.
Oh, that's how.
And then they translate the Bible into those local language.
Most of our Bible was translated by Americans with the help of Americans.
Okay.
But seeing this great transformation is going on in Nagaland, Indian government kicked out all the American missionaries from 1950. Only in 2010, American missionaries are allowed to visit. Indian government is so scared that
Yep.
all the
Intense.
Nagas will become Christian, already become Christian.
Yeah.
And then if Nagas get some kinds of training from America, then Nagas will convert all the Christian or all the Indians into Christianity. So that is the fear.
Karl Rock sees this as Jesus versus the government. But the government banned only the American missionaries because of the fear that the American Baptist missionaries are providing the impetus for the call for an independent Nagaland. Neither Jesus nor his call to live for the glory of God has anything to do, per se, with whether Nagaland should be independent from India or not. What people draw out of their beliefs is distinct from the beliefs themselves. What is also worth referring to is the impact of Christian missionaries on education in Nagaland. Here's Dr. Kanato making a powerful remark.
As far as teaching and learning concerned, whenever we are talking about Hinduism, it pertains only to the Brahmins, only to the elites. So much so that, learning Sanskrit in Hinduism and especially Arabic in Islam, these are considered to be language of the divine. But I think Christian missions had a distinct advantage because they were willing to translate the Bible literature into any unknown tongue. Well, I think one thing that in retrospection, which Nagas should be very thankful, is that education. Now, I'm being very honest, me, a tribe from an obscure village, I can look a Brahmin in the eye and say, and just, speak confidently, look eye to eye and say that I'm as better as you. And that is something that, this whole mission education has enabled us.
To date, this still remains as one of the most powerful footprints of the Christian mission work in India. The drive to spread knowledge pan-India, be it across the geographic or the ethnographic horizons, is a testament to the Christian value of upliftment of the downcasted. To know more about the impact Christian missionaries had over education in India, watch this snippet from the documentary The Voyage.
So, some missiologists wrote a book, Headhunters Turn to Soul Hunters. So, yeah, if not even today, we'll be killing one another.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I'm glad you're not doing that.
This to me is the most crucial part that makes the conversion of Nagas into Christians a powerful testament to the goodness of the good news proclaimed. The Naga tribes are known for their ferocious headhunting habit. The Konya tribe is the most infamous of all in this regard. Headhunting served multiple purposes. One of the purposes was to declare superiority over the defeated village. Headhunting was also understood to be key to maintaining the successful fertility of the crops and of sustaining the spiritual power of the village. This was because they believed that the soul resided in the head, and by capturing the head, one can channel spiritual strength. Headhunting also served as a means to display the vigor and prowess of the men in the village. It was shameful for a young man to attempt to win over a woman without having brought the heads of his victims. Ascending to the role of a chieftain of a village was also determined on the basis of heads hunted. When warriors would return to the villages with the bleeding loot of the attack, the women of the village would cheer them. As was the norm, the flesh and hair was removed after boiling the skulls, were stacked and displayed for the village to see. The act of headhunting displayed the ferociousness of the Nagas. Imagine how numb the hearts of the Naga warriors were to seeing blood, death and violence. It was this untamable nature that kept even the juggernaut British at bay for 50 years. Headhunting then was not a mere cultural remnant of insignificant value. It was not a pastime either. How did then the natives come to move away from their practices of old and into the fold of Christianity? The protocol of the Nagas was to be merciless to their enemy even if it were their neighbors. But today strangers can interact with the Nagas and call them good Samaritans, as Karl Rock did. because they experienced the love and selflessness the Nagas extended to those who were stranded on the road, just like the Good Samaritan we have all heard about. Where the British failed to assert dominance by might, the Christians were able to pacify the headhunters. E.W. Clark and the other missionaries could have never converted the Nagas and caused them to give up such an intricate practice by threat, because the warrior might would have usurped any such puny attempts. They have seen constant bloodshed. They are not timid people. So how on earth did the Nagas give up their defining tradition without causing a dearth of American missionaries? What alien material possession from the West could have lured them to deny themselves and take up the way of the cross? The answer is evidently simple: the proclamation of the eternal selfless love of God displayed on the cross. It sounds so bizarre that such ferocious warriors should lay down their spears at the call to follow the one who embodied not bone-crushing bloodthirstiness, but meekness of the highest level, who proclaimed to the rulers of this world that he has not come to build an earthly tangible kingdom established by the shedding of the other's blood. But they looked unto him and saw one who ushered in an everlasting kingdom, not of this world, and a kingdom established by the shedding of his innocent blood. Encounter with the truth liberated them. As Wati Iyer commented, for Nagas, introduction to Christianity was a new experience of peace, hope, love, and the future in Christ. It freed them from fear. I call to remembrance what Napoleon Bonaparte spoke of Christ. Alexander, Caesar, Charlemagne, and I have founded empires. But on what did we rest the creations of our genius? Upon force. Jesus Christ founded his empire upon love, and at this hour, millions of men would die for him. Say whatever you must, but you cannot brush aside what the gospel achieved among the head-hunting warriors by transforming them into lovers of their neighbors. Moving a bit ahead, we see another title, The Converting Begins. This is where I believe the crux of the video lies, given the title. The whole video is geared indirectly or directly, however you may perceive it, to cast what I think is a negative and frowned upon point of view on evangelism. By evangelism, I mean sharing the gospel or speaking about what Christianity is. The thumbnail has the word converted in red stamped over the image of Karl's non-Christian wife. Classic clickbait, I guess. And at the start of the video, here's what we see.
We gotta go before you get converted.
What's really interesting is that in the 2 minutes of recorded interaction in this section, there's just one point where the Naga driver says, just believe. Well, that sounds pretty stern and direct. Maybe now we'll see the ominous way of conversion. So here's the relevant section with the context.
I know I'm going to heaven.
Yeah.
Not because I'm good, but because what Jesus did for me.
On the cross.
Ah, Yeshua, he died and...
He died for me on the cross of Calvary.
Cool, good. I'm happy for you.
Praise the Lord. And
Yeah.
I want to be happy for you too.
Yeah, I'll work it out eventually.
Don't try to work out. Just believe.
I know, but I have to make a choice.
Oh yeah.
Who to believe? I like everybody. I find nice things in Islam, I find nice things in Hinduism, I find nice things in Buddhism. There's nice things about every religion, I find.
Yes.
And Christianity too.
Nice things cannot be the best thing.
Nice ideas, I mean, you know.
It's your choice.
Yep.
After this, the American narrated his own journey to faith, and that was it. Yep. So I'm left to wonder, what was so intriguing about this? Before this interaction, they talked about the internal struggle between Nagaland and mainland India. That was more controversial, tricky, and longer in length. But the title wasn't Riding with Naga Separatists or anything of the sort. Is there an elusive theme or narrative here? I will leave it up to you to make it out. Karl Rock at the end of the video says that he wants everyone to remain united. Well then, I believe he would also wish for the rights provided by the Indian Constitution to extend to the Nagas without hindrance too. Therefore, the driver was fully within the confines of his constitutional right, as extended by Article 25, to freely profess, practice and propagate religion subject to public order, morality and health. So what's with the characterization of sharing the gospel by way of mockery? As we've seen so far, Karl Rock isn't that enthusiastic about people freely professing or propagating the gospel. Now I want to try and explore what I sense to be a serious inconsistency in his mindset, given what he says at the end.
My message for you is, I love you no matter what religion, caste, or creed that you are. The important thing is that we treat each other fairly and that we respect each other. If we treat each other fairly and we respect each other's beliefs, then we can all live peacefully together and we can keep India united.
Before I proceed further to use a political example, given the context of Karl's video, I want to make it clear that I too agree wholeheartedly with Karl. I am called by Jesus to love everyone, even my enemies. And I want to see India remain united as we all coexist harmoniously. This appeal is reflected in Dr. Kanato's comment. I can safely say that Nagas, despite their complex history and ethnic distinction, feel they are better off under India than China. And this is so primarily because of what the Indian Constitution has until recently promised. Now, here's the catch. Some beliefs are true, good, and harmless, while some are false, immoral, and harmful. The Nazi belief in their racial supremacy, an example of this distinction, is etched into the annals of history. Another example close to home is the belief that Dalits are inferior and untouchables, and that lower caste must be subservient to the whims of the upper caste. Of similar note is the belief that headhunting is vital for crop fertility. So do we respect these beliefs and let them remain? Would Karl, by his own call to respect beliefs, respect the belief of the separatists that they are to be independent? Now, if he were to respect that belief, can he do so while calling for a united India, which is directly opposed to that belief? By Karl's own admission, I think he would say that while they have the freedom to believe in an independent Nagaland, he would not stand by it or support it. This is evidently so because all beliefs are not true, good, and noble. So then Karl Rock, deeply entrenched in his belief that India should remain united, went on to, yes, you guessed it, propagate his belief that
India should remain as one. We should all remain united.
To all his viewers, which would undoubtedly include people who would disagree with him too. Just like the Naga driver, he too gave a call to action, an invitation to join his side of the debate and align with his belief. And just like the American, he too spoke from an emotional point of what he believes. So I guess you too see the inconsistency that I am sensing here. Again, I cannot agree more with Karl on this and wish along with him as a proud Indian that we remain united. In the description of the video he wrote, "But I'm just not sure going around converting tribal people and changing their ancient traditions and culture in India is a good thing to do. It's more like some crazy religious war to make Christianity number one." He is right. The unfettered drive to make a religion, its custom and traditions reign supreme over all others at the cost of the liberty and right to freely live of the non-adherent Indian citizens, such that the non-adherents be relegated to lower than second-class citizens, is crazy and not a good thing to do. I don't know what or who you were thinking of right now, but what I am saying is that Christianity is not such a religion. Wherever the true gospel has been preached, the evils that we all acknowledge to be evils have been eradicated, or cataclysmic efforts have been initiated to that end. Again, if we are not to change ancient traditions, then we should neither ban headhunting nor should we fight for the right to education for women in Nagaland. This is because one of the chiefs told Mrs. Bronson, the wife of one of the pioneering American missionaries in Nagaland, Mr. Miles Bronson, that it is not their custom for the females of the village to learn. This is at extreme odds with where we have reached as a nation today, with Prime Minister Narendra Modi successfully advancing the Nari Shakti Vandan Adhiniyam, the Constitution 128th Amendment Bill. I may not bow down to traditions and cultural elements blindly without examining them, and will call out beliefs that I am certain can't be upheld given my moral conviction. Just like how you too would agree that it is true that headhunting is not to be promoted and that it is neither good nor harmless. Yet, my birth as an Indian is not accidental and not to be frowned upon. I am proud of my identity as an Indian just as millions of other Indian Christians are, for I am placed in this point in space and time by God. And he made from one man every nation of mankind to live on all the face of the earth, having determined their appointed times and the boundaries of their habitation, that they would seek God, if perhaps they might feel around for him and find him, though he is not far from each one of us. Acts 17 verses 26 and 27. To those who seek answers, truth shall present himself, for he is not far from each one of us. And that is my invitation for you to consider. Congrats on making it to the end. Hope you enjoyed the video. If so, do share it. Stay subscribed for more. Also, if heaven is so great, why haven't you gone there yet? Check out this video to know more. God bless.